I'm so excited to share with you some of my favorite BIPOC books for Black History Month. Hi, hello, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Alex, and today we're talking about some of my favorite BIPOC books for Black History Month. Before we really get into it, diversify your bookshelf all year. Like, there's just not enough time in February to read all of your BIPOC books then. Just like spread it out through the whole year. Don't feel like you have to limit it to February. There are so many great books out there, but today I'm going to give you my top 5, okay? Before we get into it, make sure you hit all the buttons down below so you know when I'm posting. I post every week, and if you like listening to people talk about books, that's all I do on this channel. So yeah, make sure to follow me and look for notifications. Let's get into it. Okay, so at first I was just going to tell you like my favorite BIPOC books for Black History Month, but then I started making the list, and the list kept getting longer and longer and longer, and I was like, you know what, I really just need to narrow it down to 5 books to keep it kind of short and simple. And so the 5 books that I picked today are books that I don't really see a lot on social media platforms like, you know, Book Talk, BookTube, things like that. So hopefully these are 5 new books that you haven't read. So hopefully you guys find something new to read for Black History Month or any month this year. In no particular order, let's start with Luster by Raven Leilani. This book is very interesting, but I will tell you, I would really only recommend this for older audiences because it does have quite a bit of sexual content in it. We're following a young Black woman as she's kind of trying to figure out the direction she wants her life to go. She does a lot of art, but of course she has to have like another job to kind of supplement that. She kind of gets a little bit of a reputation at her job for sleeping with her bosses, and this kind of ends up getting her shoved out of her corporate desk job. And she's just kind of left flailing a little bit. She ends up meeting this married man that tells her he has an open marriage situation going on with his wife. Things kind of escalate, and she actually ends up moving in with this couple and their adopted Black daughter over the summer. And she kind of forms this unlikely friendship with the wife. There was a lot of really neat dynamics happening in this book, and there's a lot of trauma, a lot of healing happening. Like I said, there is a lot of sexual content in this book, but I think it's done really, really well. I would definitely say this book is almost like plotless because we don't have like a full character arc happening here. This really is just a moment in time of this young woman's life being put in this kind of awkward position between a husband and a wife, and also being a temporary member of their family in quite possibly the weirdest way possible. I just think this touched on a lot of really great topics, and I loved the little journey that this was. This was very, very different, but I absolutely loved it. The next book I'm going to tell you about is The Mothers by Bennett. This book was also extremely surprising because when I read the description for it, it sounded like a hot mess, honestly. Like, I couldn't really figure out what the storyline was supposed to be because it just kind of felt everywhere. And yeah, the book kind of was, but the community dynamics that was captured in this book was just perfection, okay? We have a main character, Nadia, whose mother passes away when she's young, and she kind of slips into this black hole of her trauma of dealing with her mother passing. And in these moments of her healing, she ends up getting involved with the local pastor's son. There's a little bit of scandal that happens there, and then she kind of moves out of that and befriends another young girl named Aubrey, sorry. She befriends another young girl named Aubrey who is very conservative, And so Nadia feels like she almost can't be herself around Aubrey because of how different they are. So years go by, and then Nadia ends up coming back to the small town that she grew up in. And basically, all of the trauma and all of the drama from the past catches up to her and her friend Aubrey. It was an emotional roller coaster reading this book, and there was also just so many little twists in there. It was definitely not a thriller or anything like that, but it felt thrilling. Do you know what I mean? This was really just a story of a small town and these two girls in the small town, and how the church and the mothers of the church, which would be like the elders, both step in and step out of these girls' lives. The community dynamics, like I said, flawless, because I felt like this was so very true to what happens in small towns sometimes, where people just know each other's business, and the elders of this church, like, they either came in and helped or stepped back and just watched things fall apart and just kind of tutted and, you know, speculated and judged instead of stepping in and helping. Lots of trauma in this book, lots of beautiful writing, lots of secrets, lots of drama. It was just amazing the way that she put this together. I highly recommend this. But also it does have some triggering content in it. There's suicide and mental health. And also there is some hinted at sexual assault trauma, but we don't ever really get into it. But otherwise, this book really blew me away. The next book I'm going to talk to you about is Skye Falling by me and McKenzie. Y'all heard me talk about this book like a lot because I absolutely adore this book. There are so many great things happening in such a small amount of time. I don't know how she managed it, but this is just a beautifully written book. We have our main character, Skye, and when she was in her mid-20s, she was kind of hard up for money, so she donated some of her eggs to make some fast cash. Now, I think it's like maybe 13 years, 15 years later, something like that, she has just kind of established herself as a loner. Like, she runs her own business, she travels a lot, she's not really into staying in one place or attaching herself to people. And while she's home in Philly on her break from traveling, she finds out that one of her eggs is actually like, you know, a kid, and has sought her out and found her. And it's just a wild ride from there. The themes in this book, the representation in this book is just astounding. We have, you know, LGBTQIA representation all across the spectrum. We have lots of POC, BIPOC representation here, mental health representation. It's just astounding. Some other themes that happen in this book are found family. We get discussions on gentrification, police brutality, anti-Black racism. It's so much in one book, and it's so well written. Like, please pick up this book. It's amazing. I think me and McKenzie just really outdid herself with this book, and I absolutely loved it. Okay, we're coming down to the final two, and I did save these final two for the last because they are some of my favorites. Let's talk about How Long Till Black Future Month by N.K. Jemisin. I just read this not that long ago, and it is a collection of sci-fi fantasy shorts that are just... I don't even like short stories, okay? This was picked for my book club, and it just totally blew my little brain. Like, the representation that Jemisin was able to get, the little plot lines and stuff, there are some stories in here that I would read an entire novel based on. What I ended up doing was just kind of like breaking this down to like 1 or 2 stories a day. There's just... Jemisin has an innate ability to write short stories that are completely captivating. I think this is just one of those things that you put on your shelf and peruse every now and then when you want a little bit of excitement or something new and different. The representation in this book, she nailed it. The cover is exquisite. The stories are amazing. I just love this book to pieces. Honestly, just have it on your shelf and pick through it every now and then. Like, there's so many little gems in this book that are amazing. Okay, the last book I'm going to talk to you about is 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. Y'all have heard me gush about this book. Like, I absolutely love this book. It's considered a romance, but I will tell you, it is just wild the whole way through. Tia Williams just mashed on the gas pedal and didn't let up the whole time. There's also buku's of representation here. So much happening, and I loved every minute of this book, okay? It just ripped my heart open. I love this book. We have two main characters, Eva and Shane. They met at a very troubled time in high school, and they spent a week together, and it was a very trauma-filled week. Shane had a lot of his own issues, and Eva had a lot of hers, and they just kind of came together at a very difficult point in their lives, and that week together was very damaging for both of them. They end up going their separate ways, growing up into completely different people, and reconnecting again as adults. The fire that Tia Williams was able to build, the chemistry on the page between these two was just amazing, outstanding. I cannot not recommend this book. I absolutely love this book. On top of all that, we have a lot of great mental health representation, BIPOC representation. We also have lots of conversations about what it means to be a woman of color and a man of color in the publishing industry. Both Eva and Shane are authors. And Eva talks a lot about in this book how difficult it is for women of color, specifically Black women, to have a platform to stand on that isn't just about the Black movement. And I found it so interesting because I just loved it. And like, Tia Williams is an author, so I feel like she poured a lot of herself into Eva in this sense of talking about being a writer and being an author and being silenced and quieted and told, if you're not going to talk about Black issues in your books, then we don't really want to publish you. It just put a spotlight on this whole issue, and I absolutely loved reading about that. Eva also has what she considers an invisible disability because she gets very debilitating migraines. And I thought the conversations that were happening there were also just wonderful. As someone who also has kind of like an invisible disability, it was nice to have these conversations and to hear it represented on the page. Just so much beautiful content in this book. I absolutely loved it. I will never not gush about this book because it just made my heart swell. I loved it. I loved it so much. Yeah, so just read this one for sure. Okay, I know I said I was going to keep it to the top 5, but I have a bonus title to give you. It's Black Klansman by Ron Stallworth. I think this book is worth reading purely on the fact that it's a true story. Okay, was it hyper exciting? Nah. I feel like nonfiction is like so hit and miss with me. The reason this one is so interesting is because it's nonfiction. It's set in 1978. It is a true story based on Ron Stallworth, who was the first Black detective in his unit in Colorado Springs, maybe, or just Colorado. I can't remember. He actually becomes a KKK member and infiltrates their little chapter in his local area. It's just so interesting. This was turned into a film, and I feel like a lot of people have probably seen the film. I have not. I just read the book, and this was years ago that I read it. It wasn't recent or anything. I just remember thinking just what an amazing story it was. And the fact that it actually happened to me was just the cherry on top of it all. I would say it's not like really a fast-paced book, and the ending's not like super satisfying or anything like that. To me, like I said, the reason this book was so interesting was because it actually happened in real life, and this is Ron Stallworth's story of infiltrating the KKK in Colorado. Those things that I feel like you should read and just experience. Highly recommend, for sure. Okay, that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you found something on this list that you might enjoy reading, not just for Black History Month, but for any month of the year. Diversify your bookshelf all year. I definitely do, and I highly encourage you to do that. Do you have any suggestions for me to read this month? I already have some books picked out that I'm really excited about. You can go check that out in the February maybes. And I'm excited about the content coming up the next couple months, and I hope that you'll join me on that journey. So I will see you guys next time. Bye!